Meanwhile, Republican chief negotiator Congressman Garrett Graves says that there's still, quote, a significant gap on the debt ceiling talks, saying that the White House needs to acknowledge Washington's spending problem first. But House Speaker Kevin McCarthy still remains hopeful. Here's what he said. Watch.
I thought the talks were good. They broke now. They got to go back and be a little more creative, look at some other ways for some numbers on some challenges that we have. I believe we can still get there and get there before June 1st.
Joining me right now is Kentucky Congressman, member of the House Financial Services Committee, Andy Barr. Congressman, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here. What are the odds that something gets done before June 1st, given the fact that the president keeps saying, even if he agrees to some spending cuts, he wants revenue there? That means higher taxes.
Well, higher taxes are off the table. We don't have a revenue problem. We have an overspending problem in Washington. I believe that there has been some modest progress made in the discussions. I did talk to my colleague Garrett Graves this morning, and negotiations have been moving forward over the evening last night. But the fact remains that after House and Senate Democrats and President Biden increased the nation's spending trajectory by $10 trillion over the first 2 years of the Biden administration, the president has been missing in action for the last 6 months on these discussions related to avoiding a default. We all know we have to avoid default, but avoiding short-term default is not the only issue in terms of protecting the full faith and credit of the United States. In the medium and long term, the full faith and credit of the United States is in jeopardy because we are spending money we don't have. $32 trillion in debt is simply unsustainable, and putting our head in the sand and just asking for another credit card is not going to protect the sustainability of our country in the long run. That's why Republicans passed a bill, and we are the only ones who passed a bill to responsibly raise the debt limit and not just issue a new blank credit card to Democrats and the president to continue to spend our country into bankruptcy.
Well, the longer this goes on, this stalemate has people thinking that you're going to have to agree to a short-term raise in the debt ceiling, even if it's the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months. Are you discussing that you would raise the debt ceiling perhaps till October?
Well, I don't think we need to. I think we just need a recognition by the administration that some reasonable spending limitations need to be put into place. It's not as if Republicans are asking for anything unreasonable. We're just simply asking that we go back to fiscal year 2022 spending levels. It's not like we're asking to go back pre-COVID. It's very, very modest what we're asking for, which is, by the way, $1.5 trillion in spending. Apparently, Democrats and the president don't think that's enough. $1.5 trillion in non-mandatory discretionary spending. And then we're even proposing a 1% increase per year over time. This is not unreasonable given the $32 trillion national debt. So what I think Republicans are asking for is just a show of some good faith on the part of the president that we're going to put some modicum of spending discipline in place so that we don't continue to steal from the next generation of Americans.
Congressman, I want to switch gears, ask you about your work on the House Select Committee on the strategic competition between the U.S. and China. This is a story that we have been talking about for years, and that is why we have so many indexes that are investing in Chinese companies, even if they're sanctioned. And the Thrift Fund, which is the 401k for government employees, with this open opportunity to invest in Chinese companies, and maybe investors are inadvertently funding the expansion of communist China. Newsweek is now on the story as well. They write, since June of 2022, the federal government's employee retirement plan has offered its 6.8 million members the option to invest some of their savings in Thrift Savings Plan, which contains about 5,000 mutual funds. Some of those funds have holdings in Chinese companies on at least 9 U.S. government sanctions or watch list. Congressman, I know you have new legislation. It's aiming to block U.S. capital from flowing into these companies. You spoke about it during a House hearing last week. Let's watch a bit of that. Watch.
Full SDN sanctions. That means no listing on U.S. exchanges, no equity, no debt, no VC, no private equity, red light on those companies, very precise, identify them, green light on everything else. Is that the clarity that U.S. investors need?
I believe it is. And after all, these are U.S. sanctioned entities. Let's start there. I mean, again, if we want to talk about low-hanging fruit as to how we go about trying to lower radically the American risk exposure to particularly the bad actors in China's corporate world, this is a very good place to start.
And of course, that was Roger Robinson, who's been a guest on this program. He's been working on this for years, Congressman. So why did Joe Biden, back in 2013, sign a memorandum of understanding which allowed hundreds of Chinese companies to trade on our exchanges, opening up the floodgates of potential investors funding communist China?
Well, that's right, and that is a head-scratcher why Joe Biden did that. But I think of all of the issues in the multifaceted competition and adversarial relationship that we have with the Chinese Communist Party, this is, I think, a huge story, and I know you've been on top of it. The fact that millions of Americans are unwittingly financing the rise of the Chinese Communist Party, financing Chinese military, technology, and surveillance companies that actually threaten our national security. The thrift savings plan is particularly obnoxious, offensive, because you're talking about U.S. service members and their retirement unwittingly financing the very adversary that they could well be in conflict with in the future. So what we're doing with our legislation is not just addressing the thrift savings plan, but the literally over $1.2 trillion in U.S. holdings of Chinese debt and equity securities in these companies of national security concern. We want to give the American and also non-U.S. investor community some clarity. So we use the power of Treasury OFAC sanctions to be very precise about identifying those blacklisted Chinese companies that threaten our national security. Again, these are military companies, they're technology companies, telecommunications companies, they're companies that help with the genocide of the Uyghurs and human rights violations. And we're going to be very precise, and we're also going to force the various agencies of the federal government, the Commerce Department, Treasury, and the DOD to coordinate across the various lists that we have, these various sanctions lists, so that there is a coordinated strategy by the U.S. government to prevent these capital flows from fueling the rise of China.
Well, I mean, have you spoken with Gina Raimondo, the Commerce Secretary? She's about to host a dinner for her counterpart in China this week. On Thursday, they're having a dinner. A couple of weeks ago, I think that the White House was floating out this story that Joe Biden would come up with some limitations in investing in Chinese companies and that he would release it during the G7 or around the G7. That never happened. I never saw any limitations to invest in Chinese companies. Where is it?
Yeah, it's nowhere, and a lot of lip service from this administration. You know, the president, and I heard him on your program earlier, a clip where he said that he did not want to decouple across the board.
Right.
The reality is we need strategic and targeted decoupling, because if we don't, the American people will be unwittingly financing China. So, look, this is a national security imperative that we protect U.S. investors and we limit capital flows that actually harm the United States and our allies in this multi-decade competition that is in front of us.
Well, I don't think Ray Dalio or Larry Fink see it that way. They've been doubling down on investing in China, Congressman. Real quick, final word.
Well, they have, and that's the problem, is that if we do not provide the rules of the road, this will continue to happen, and the very CEOs who are all in on ESG, punishing and discriminating against American energy companies, are now saying triple down in China. Where's the patriotism? We're going to give Wall Street the clarity that we need for our national security.
Yeah, that is rich. You're right when you consider the ESG moves. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here.
Good to see you.
We'll keep a spotlight on it. Andy Barr in D.C., and we'll be right back.